Hey there fellas, hope you're all doing good today. I've been looking at this whole Halo situation, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys, it doesn't look too good, but it doesn't look terrible either. So let's just get into it and see what we can extract from it. I've been looking at both sides of the argument here, and I've seen some concerns with the Chief of Staff, and trust me, I see the reason why people are worried, because let's just face it, it's more of the same type of decision making that doesn't seem to make sense. But we'll get into this in just a bit. I've also seen people pointing out positive things, and in the middle of it all, I've also seen a lot of bullshit from both positive posts and negative posts, which I'm going to stay the hell out of. Let's just do the good news first. On the good side of things, we have Pierre Hintze, another French name. I can't do French names, guys, I'm sorry. We're just gonna call him Pierre from here on out. From what I see online, this dude is highly appreciated by the fans for apparently turning the Master Chief Collection from a broken mess into an actually enjoyable experience, and also for improving Halo Infinite's experience as well. I am not personally updated on any of this because I only started playing Halo very recently. Back when I owned the 360, I never got into these games, so I only started playing through the Master Chief Collection on my Series S. I'm playing them in order, so I'm only on Halo 3 so far, haven't managed to get to Infinite, or any of 343's games for that matter. However, I am 100% up to date on the fact that the Halo franchise has not been doing well under 343's control. I know all about the issues and disappointments from their games. Still, it seems like this dude, Pierre, has actually put in a lot of work to make these experiences better, and appointing him as studio head is a W nonetheless. Apparently this guy just took the lead and gave the people exactly the kind of updates that they needed in order to enjoy these games, at least on the multiplayer side. Having someone who is an actual fan and passionate about what they're doing, passionate about the franchise they are working on, knowledgeable on the IP, and understanding of its core tenets is crucial for a game's success, and it should always be the correct decision to be made. A game can still come through many problems, don't get me wrong. Publisher interference, for example, can still screw up a game big time. Like for example, take Dead Space. Visceral, a very passionate team, struck gold with the first game, and then EA started interfering, wanting them to make sequels that lean more towards action and eventually even co-op and microtransactions in order to appeal to a wider audience and make more money. It did not go well. Overambition is also another problem that can totally screw up a game. There's many examples of this. Cyberpunk 2077 is a good recent one. They wanted to do way too much. Their scope and ambition was massive, and they soon found themselves stretched too thin, ending up with half-baked systems and missing features at launch, not to mention an utterly unplayable state on most systems it launched on. Even on high-end PCs, issues with bugs were inescapable. Thankfully though, with their foundation of brilliant writing, characters, and quest design, they managed to eventually fix the game's biggest problems, add missing features, and deliver a fantastic expansion, totally turning the situation of Cyberpunk 2077 from a disaster into a success. Bad management is another huge problem that can hit any studio, and is to blame for a lot of bad decisions that end up in really bad games. For example, Mass Effect Andromeda was a victim to terrible management within the studio that had developers working completely blind and totally scattered. Not only did they not know what it is exactly that they were working on, but they didn't even know how the individual pieces that they were developing would fit together with other departments. A lot of work and money was thrown away because of delusional concepts for what Andromeda should be. At one point in the beginning, they were even considering a way to work the game into making exploration like No Man's Sky. Not to mention other problems such as people from the team working on Andromeda being pulled away to work on Anthem, leaving Andromeda with even less developers to work on the poorly managed mess that they had to work on. But regardless of all of these problems, you're always far better off with someone who is passionate, knowledgeable, and relatively not unhinged to take lead on your projects. One of the things that makes people worry in regards to Dragon Age Veilguard is that if you read the dev diary of the creative director and what she thinks of the Dragon Age franchise, what her aspirations are for it, etc., there is next to nothing about the game and the franchise itself. Instead, it's just a bunch of identity politics and personal nonsense that nobody who is simply interested in the next Dragon Age game really cares about. For more on this, feel free to check out my Veilguard video. So, to recap, Pierre, as a studio head, is a great call and a positive point. Another good decision is switching to Unreal Engine. Don't get me wrong, this image here looks like ass. It's been floating around a lot, so I assume that it's supposed to show off the Chief in Unreal Engine 5. The good thing about this engine, though, is that it's very versatile, and if there's a problem, like if they hit a technical wall that they can't get past, they can always put up a job listing for an expert on this engine and hire them, significantly improving their chances of success while using it. These images are new and there's really not much to go on, so I'm not really going to focus on them. But this whole engine thing and being able to just hire someone who is an expert is a huge boon. This was something that BioWare and others sorely needed back when EA was forcing everyone to use their Frostbite engine for all of their games around 10 years ago. Nobody knew what the fuck they were doing and there was nobody that they could call. They had to figure it out all on their own. So yeah, the move to Unreal Engine 5 is fine. Even if some people are concerned about games ending up looking the same, I think that Unreal Engine 5 is very versatile. I think that if you if you have a really good art director, you can make your game look very unique. But now we are going to have to talk about some negatives, unfortunately, because they are unavoidable. While looking at this situation, I looked around for positives and negatives, and one of the positive posts that I found was Actman's. I saw some good comments down there, including things about Pierre, but I also saw a lot of shit that didn't make any sense to me, and I found some copium as well, but we'll leave that for last. First, in this post, he says that he's very excited and that changing the engine, rebranding the studio and starting fresh is the way to go. But I don't understand this at all. I don't see how or why any of this is supposed to be a good thing to be excited about. How is 343 changing their name supposed to delete the fact that they have proven over and over that at their best, the best that they could do was an okay game? Even the Actman himself had videos criticizing 343. 343 changing their name doesn't really change the fact that they've been the same studio that has been disappointing fans for years now. Even the rebranding itself feels so cringy. It's just so weird and also very, I don't know, obnoxious? I'm failing to get the right word here, but it feels off to see this studio take the entire Halo identity for itself. It limits the scope of what they can work on, and it also limits who can work on Halo games. And it also inherently ties them to the Halo brand, and if you look back at what they have done to show for it, have they really earned it with all of their disappointing directions that they took this brand in? Even in the Call of Duty franchise, even while having the same 3 studios working on these games constantly one after another, Infinity Ward, Treyarch and Sledgehammer, they still didn't rebrand the studios into COD Studios, you know what I mean? And it's also a bit of a hope killer. I don't know if this is just me, but while it was 343, there was always this resident hope inside of me that one day Microsoft would get rid of them, get them working on some other games or whatever, and either reacquire Bungie or make a deal with PlayStation or hell, start over fresh with a new studio with some veterans or something like that. Making 343 into Halo Studios is none of this at all. It's literally still the same studio. But it also makes things very definitive, that this is now what Halo is. It's 343 and it will never change. Either we can get used to it or stop playing, or alternatively, they can hopefully stop taking so fucking long to grasp the core tenets of Halo and finally make a good game that pleases their fanbase, instead of trying to take Halo into their own personal direction that keeps failing to hit the target. But anyway, regardless of how cringe the rebranding looks, I still don't see the excitement. This studio hasn't offered their fans a single thing to be hopeful about when it comes to this franchise. The entire thing being done with Halo itself as a brand offers very little to be hopeful or excited for. Just look at the pile of shit that was the Halo TV show. They couldn't have had someone with balls to lead that project and say, no, this is not what Halo is, this is not who Master Chief is, we are not going to do this, we are going to stay loyal to the brand, and we're going to make this instead. Like, where's the passion? Where's the loyalty? Where are the figurative balls to walk into a goddamn studio and go, no motherfucker, this you want to make a Halo show? Then we're going to make a Halo show. You're not going to make some fucking random ass afternoon TV show using the Halo skin. I don't know. Literally the only seemingly good thing I see here is this Pierre guy who stepped up to fix their games and make the multiplayer experiences better. But there's still a lot to be desired when it comes to the actual direction of Halo as a franchise that was always so much more than its multiplayer. I would even argue, even as someone new to this franchise, that the true heart of Halo was in its narrative and world building. People loved the Chief and flocked to buy those games because they were invested in his character and in this world, which 343 has constantly failed to capture. If not for the value of nostalgia, I doubt that their games would have even continued to get made. As far as I can see, they also haven't announced who their next creative director is going to be for the game, which is an important detail to assess if there is anything to be hopeful for, or the opposite. And outside of that, the only other relevant thing that I can find, and that is what is actually generating a lot of the controversy that is going on right now on Twitter, is that Xbox appointed this lady here, Melissa Boone, as the chief of staff for the Halo studio. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I don't like discussing this kind of thing. I don't like having to feel like I have to. I don't like to sound mean to random people who haven't done shit. In some of my other videos, I know that I go off on Sweet Baby Inc., but that is because they are rotten. They have more than showed that their goals and desires are to take over this industry, fill it with propaganda, or burn it to the ground, because they literally hate us. They hate the gaming space, they hate that the vast majority of gamers are dudes and the stuff that we enjoy playing. They self-admittedly bully their way into projects by intimidating bosses with cancel culture mobs.
If you're a creative working in AAA, which I did for many, many years, put this stuff up to your higher-ups. And if they don't see the value in what you're asking for when you ask for consultants, when you ask for research, go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want.
They are protected by the darling media that is willing to go as far as to lie and fabricate stories to attack developers who denied hiring them, such as Game Science. And as if that shit wasn't enough, their CEO is a racist who, despite having her racist shit leaked out onto the open, is still gainfully employed and working with industry titans, such as these on the screen right now, and many more who they had to stop advertising on their website because of people starting to boycott them. Okay? And in my Ubisoft video, I go off on this idiot monetization director who had the ballsack to blame the gamers and call us indecent for laughing at Ubisoft's deserved downfall after constant releases of slop that we audibly complained about for years. So basically, a guy who is in charge of filling their games with predatory monetization, expensive as fuck cosmetic packs, season passes, cut content, and loot boxes, virtue signaling, and morally high standing at the consumers whose wallets he had been fucking. However, this lady here, I have seen nothing from her. For all I know, she's just someone that Xbox is propping up the same way that these other companies always do. So I don't like talking about this stuff. I don't harbor any ill will towards her. I do not want to cause her any harassment, nor am I going to harass her with my comments. However, regardless, it is what it is. I still have questions that I have to ask because as a consumer, it is my right to wonder what kind of decisions these companies are making. According to her information, she was part of Xbox's research team. She's got a PhD in psychology and a research... Wait, what? Oh, and she has like research in public health, focused on people's social interactions, influencing their risks of HIV and substance abuse, especially in African American and Latinos, not fucking Latinx. This Latinx shit doesn't exist. Get it the fuck out of my face. She then did a stint doing market research in video games, and since it was super fun for her, she decided to go into the games industry, and that's it. That's how she got to where she is. She's not particularly invested into it, she just found it fun and decided to get a job within the industry. She's been managing research across several Xbox studios, and she leads research in diversity, inclusion, and accessibility. Accessibility is a great thing. I want as many people to be able to enjoy games as possible, and it is an actually real thing because without research and work in this field, certain people literally cannot physically play certain games. This isn't some retarded delusional shit where it's like, if I'm not personally represented, I can't play a video game. No, this is like people who literally do not have the capability to play certain games because of visual impairments or hearing impairments or motor impairments. But this diversity and inclusion bullshit is just back to the same old problems. More nonsense that only appeals to the 1% and that affects everyone else. Accessibility, on the other hand, is something that you select in the menu. You can turn it on or you can turn it off. But the doors that DEI open for games are not good. They keep proving to fuck up our media, and there's never any buttons to turn it off. Have a look at this list here. This is something that Xbox put out for all of their studios. This didn't even leak out. These fucking morons in charge were just straight up proud to share this and show it off to everyone like a badge of honor during the backlash that Stellar Blade was getting before launch for featuring attractive female characters. They just came out like, hey guys, check out how cool and awesome we are over here at Team Xbox. Aren't we so cool and considerate and progressive? Look at all the fun, creative restrictions we have for all our studios to follow in the name of unhinged diversity and inclusion and overt political correction. Check it out, guys. Look at all this cool stuff. No good looking female characters because that's bad and misrepresentative of real women who apparently, according to us, look like shit. And look here, very very careful dialogues to make sure that we don't trip up any accidental stereotypes or accidental offensive words that may harm someone. Look how conscientious we are going to be with our words and our characters on screen. Also, not only that, but check out our diversity quotas. Not only do we have those, but we also have a percentage quota for those diverse characters to evenly share of screen time. Isn't it cool, guys? Isn't it? Aren't all of these rules stifling creativity and freedom super cool? Like, fellas, I'm sorry, but there's really only one way to look at this. This is utterly unhinged. Like, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're the Pope or the King or the President of the Intergalactic Council. There is only one way to look at this. It is unhinged. It is unnecessary. It is prejudicial to art. It does not belong in the entertainment industry, and when applied societally, which is where it always leads, it is utterly regressive. And sadly, this kind of thing reaches far beyond what is put into a video game. It reaches into the culture within the studio. It reaches into the very hiring and promotion of staff and the mood within the studio. And there are places that go absolutely nuts with this kind of stuff. Seriously, have a look at Ubisoft. Ubisoft is caked with this stuff. It's all over the place. It's like mold spreading through the walls. They don't have diversity and inclusion. They have like separate departments for each little group within this diversity and inclusion of people. You can check out my video on Ubisoft to get a grasp at how far this reaches and how much it impacts the mood within the studio, the attitude and the morale of the developers. Just to give you an example here, in Ubisoft, you could get called into a meeting with HR just because of not including emojis in your messages or using exclamation points. This stuff is lunacy. Now, I don't know if this is the same kind of situation within 343 and subsequently the new Halo studios, but I do know that in the planet that I used to be from, before someone fucking opened the portal and shoved me and all of us into this one, we wouldn't see some market research person who focuses on diversity and inclusion to be bumped up to chief of staff. But hey, whatever. It's none of my business how people run their business. Chief of staff is an important position within the studio, but in theory, it does not have anything to do with the actual game design. The problem is that in practice, a chief of staff still has a lot of control over the people who do the actual game design. So I can only hope that this lady here isn't like fucking crazy and is going to turn the environment within the studio into the same kind of soft, dull, boring environment that Ubisoft turned into over the years, to the point where toxic positivity took over and people were unable to criticize each other's work or give alternative ideas. Toxic positivity is a total game killer because it stifles progress, and it's so easy to let this spread. All you need is to be overly politically correct and foster an environment that cares way too much for people's feelings. I know that I might be sounding like Dr. Doom right now, but that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that people should have a proper workplace to work in. I'm saying that these HR departments should be making sure that everyone is able to reach out in situations of actual abuse. But I mean actual abuse, not not someone fucking criticizing their work or using cuss words in the workplace. Employees should be treated right, they should be getting paid on time, and should not be influenced in participating into crunch bullshit. But that's about it. Anything else that wants to infantilize people and treat them like babies is stupid. Too much of this stuff, and they're going to be finding their offices filled with Karens who will go running to HR crying over a fucking exclamation mark on an email. If you have an issue with your game, you need to have people around you who are going to tell you. If your work is ass, you need someone to tell you and demand better. But with toxic positivity, these things are considered hostile in the workplace. And it's yet another problem that degraded things within Ubisoft, and that is 100% present in other studios that devolve into this soft culture that worships DEI and political correctness. This is another thing that I ran into while browsing. A guy who is strongly against guns and the Second Amendment, which is fine by the way, working on a shooter. You can have whatever views you want to have, but you can't let your views affect your work, and this dude outright shows that it does bother him. So it's like, why is he working on Halo? Why not just move him over to some other team that makes a different kind of game that aren't shooters? Even the guy would end up happier because he wouldn't have to wake up every day to go be a producer on a game that predominantly features guns that shoot. And this really shows the core issue and the exact reason why people get rightfully worried about the future of their favorite games and studios when they see these kinds of decisions being made for a studio staff. These kinds of decisions are a potential sign that this studio is cooked and going down the exact same road that so many other Western studios are going down, and not just in the video game side of things, but in entertainment media in general. I am tired of repeating this same thing over and over, but like, it's just true. How many more flops are we going to have to see coming from Disney, who fully bought into this whole fucking DEI thing, until we understand that this is not the correct path to take in the games industry? How many more lessons must we learn? How many more companies do we have to see put in a bad financial spot until we learn that this whole ideological culture should be kept out of certain major male-leaning action franchises such as Halo in order to ensure that we're making the best possible product? And it's not even just male-leaning, this stuff just sucks in general. My girlfriend is having a blast right now replaying that Lollipop Chainsaw Remaster game. It is a game that, if undergone through DEI bullshit, would end up with a fat-ass protagonist that looks like crap, just to fight against this non-existent ghost called the patriarchy and the male gaze. And through that, she would immediately lose all interest in the game, because if you're not playing as a cute cheerleader hanking heads off, then what the fuck is the point? Where's the originality? Where's the concept? Where's the special flair that the game claims as an identity? At that point, you may as well be playing Dead Rising or Left 4 Dead. So male audiences, female audiences, it doesn't even matter. This stuff is just bad. It's an enemy of entertainment in general. How many more lessons will these people need in order to stop demonizing their audiences just because they're mostly male? There's also so many different franchises out there where people like this Nick guy, who slaps every possible relevant flag on their bio to show how morally righteous they are, would fit in like a glove and actually maybe be of use of in the making of different types of games. So why do we have to put him working on Halo when he shows that he struggles with it? If you're making a shooter, you need your producer to have no qualms whatsoever with guns and shooting. You don't need to be a fucking gun-toting, Second Amendment-loving guy, but you absolutely need to be able to have someone who looks at a gun within a video game context and thinks, cool, how can I lead my team into designing the coolest guns with the perfect animations and sound design to create this feeling of heavy impact so that I can use them in some of the coolest action set pieces that the series has ever seen? Like, this is what you need for your shooters, because people who are going to be playing these shooters are not going to be people who have problems with guns within a video game context. You need someone who wants to make the coolest guns and the best possible combat system and action set pieces to please these players. Not a guy who believes that he cannot work on a game that glorifies or fantasizes modern guns, and who admits that he has struggled to work with Halo, and that the quality of his work heavily hangs in the balance of how he feels that day in regards to the separation of reality from fiction. I don't I legitimately do not understand who the fuck is managing these teams and making these decisions, but they are not doing it the right way. It's as simple as that, guys. You can't excuse this in my mind. This is like me opening up a fucking car workshop and hiring someone who abhors cars and just wants to work on bikes, and is only able to do a good job whenever a car rolls up that fucking reminds him of a bike or something. It's nuts to me that these decisions are being made at such a high level. There are executives in charge of these companies making huge bank with the highest salaries Microsoft has to offer, and they are making these decisions. Decisions that land people who visibly struggle with guns as the producers of a shooter. And of course, people who live and breathe DEI in a management position that handles the staff. And also, of course, not to forget, whoever worked on this unhinged list for all of their studios to follow, and then also was high enough on shrooms or whatever it was, that it made them feel like it was a totally great decision and a fantastic display of exciting things to come for their gamers to openly share that crap out onto the public as a bash on Stellar Blade for having a character that dares to unapologetically look like a woman.
Some people are really fucking stupid.
So yeah, I'm sorry, but I just don't see what the excitement is yet. I am once again just being met with dogshit takes online that attack people for having these very valid concerns. We don't owe shit to this industry. We don't owe any goodwill to these companies. If they show us nonsense that is looking a lot like the kind of shit that has negatively affected other pieces of media and other companies, then people have the right to be concerned and ask questions. I don't condone attacks and harassment either, but some people's bars for what constitutes harassment is hanging insanely low. Wondering what Xbox is doing by putting people in positions that they don't seemingly belong in is not harassment. And then whenever I see also, copium and shit takes like this, which was under Actman's post, I just don't care. This is nonsense with absolutely no value whatsoever. But Acting Man, didn't you know women had been spotted, so it's woke? That's what the internet tells me, with a picture of Az from Heel vs Babyface, specifically from his Starfield pronoun rant. This is copium of the highest grade, boys. You are seeing a miracle of modern chemistry right in front of your eyes. This completely misrepresents what any of those arguments are about, and worse, it uses a picture of Az from his rant last year that was completely bang on everything. Everything he fucking said came to light this year. I challenge anyone to go look at his fucking rant and indicate where the lie is. Everything blew out onto the open this year after Soy Squad sucked so bad that Sweet Baby Inc. and all of these other DEI consultants got exposed. Even the Actman himself, who shat on Az last year whenever he made his the rant, found himself this year looking at this Sweet Baby Inc. shit and going, huh? Why would the teams hire narrative consultants? Why not keep it in-house? What? They do it to increase their ESG scores for money? I think I just vomited in my own mouth. So yeah, even the Actman himself has acknowledged this shit. Why doesn't he talk more about these issues? Why does he seemingly ignore these signs? Well, I don't care. What he does with his content is his business. But this copium from comments like these, which are sadly far more common to find than they should, are completely irrelevant to engage with because they don't deal in the basis of reality. They live in a bubble where they genuinely believe that it's totally irrelevant to hire a psychology major who focuses on DEI as chief of staff for a shooter. And they say irrelevant things such as, well, as long as they are qualified to do their job and aren't toxic, then I don't see a problem. This is a total non-answer that literally anyone would agree with. The problem is that you are ignoring the huge red flag in the room just so that you can avoid the topic. And then even worse, they contradict themselves with ridiculous bullshit, like for example this here. Because apparently having a profile caked with Halo-related stuff and the kick-ass portfolio for a Halo job is bad. It shows that someone is just making it their entire personality and is not a real person. But having your profile caked with LGBT and DEI-related stuff with a shit portfolio is apparently great and just means that you're a real person. Like, come on, man, you gotta do a little bit better than that, otherwise I got nothing to go on. How are we supposed to take these kinds of arguments seriously? How are we supposed to take any of these arguments as a sign that things are going to be okay? All we really have on that note is that Pierre is the studio head, but even that isn't enough to offset the fact that their focus on diversity, equity and inclusion, a aggressive virus on our society and a killer of entertainment, is still alive and well within Xbox's priorities. And you know, other stupid ass decisions, such as putting the guy who struggles with making shooters as the producer of a shooter. But anyway, that's all I've got on this matter. Just like the situation with Ghost of Yotai, I will be hoping for the best and keeping an eye on how all of this develops. I'd like nothing more than to have Halo become this huge thing again, so that I could get excited for it the same way that so many people did way back then in the good old days. Thanks for watching, leave me a like if you liked the video, and if you have any thoughts, feedback or any suggestions, let me know in the comments. I'm gonna be hanging around down there as well. Have a good one and I'll see you guys on the next one.